Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm hoping that we're going to show a bit of insight into GPT and have some practical next steps. What we're going to do just to kick off with is my colleague Helen is going to drop a couple of polys, what they call polys on Teams, just to vote just on a couple of things just to get your feedback. They'll come up in your chat shortly. If you could just let us know your thoughts or where you sit in terms of those points, that'd be greatly appreciated. I guess just a quick welcome, obviously, intro from myself. My name is Matthew Chalk. I've had the pleasure of meeting quite a few on this call in the past and previously worked with Asoria. So just a quick intro to myself. I've got 10 years of experience, I guess, working in change management, not as change managers like yourself, but more on the initially in the recruiter end of the spectrum, and then now with the Asoria management consultancy side, been here for 7 years now. I head up the client services team within Asoria. Various degrees of industry experience, and I guess more importantly in the change management space, I've worked with people in the change management space, change communications, org design, org development, so I have a pretty good understanding about background of what we're looking for with regards to people. Then I guess how this has all come about is obviously we look at a lot of CVs and we speak with a lot of people on a regular basis, and then I've got a huge passion for GPT and obviously a lot of interest in how that can improve efficiencies and obviously improve output from my point of view. And yeah, I guess conversations with people in the past have led me to do a few demos with them independently, but realized that there's probably a wider audience that isn't benefiting from it. So I thought we'd put this together today. So I guess yeah, just a bit of background on myself, and then join with me is Izzy.
Hi everyone, my name's Izzy Thompson. I'm head of finance here at Asoria. Similar to Matthew, I've been here six years now, and I think one of the great things about Asoria is we're all encouraged to follow our interests and passions. So for me, for the past 6, maybe 12 months, my passion has been in AI. So I'm mainly going to sit on the sidelines during this workshop, but I'll jump in if I can use any of my experience to add any insight. So with that, hand back to Matthew.
Thanks, Izzy. I can see a few people got problems with the chat. There's the first thing that you usually run into these things when you're running workshops or sessions. So I guess if you wouldn't mind just typing out where you sit, that would be greatly appreciated, just to get an understanding of kind of the audience. We were hoping to keep it anonymous, but we're happy to share where you sit in the spectrum. That will be great, and then we can get an idea of the audience today. So just to give you a quick overview of what we're covering today, demystifying ChatGPT. Just to give you a bit of an overview, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the name, heard about it. I don't know. We'll see from the polys or the responses where you guys sit as a collective, I guess. Just understanding prompting, it's a huge part of GPT and how we use it. So just to give you an understanding of what a prompt is, what does a good prompt look like, to hopefully give you a bit of an overview on that. And then really the nuts and bolts, I think, of today's session is we really want to give you practical next steps, coming out of this session with how could I put into practice today, ways of improving my CV or ways of applying for jobs quicker, faster, or at least giving me a first draft, right? That's sometimes the hardest thing, is getting outside of the house to try and create something new. So that's kind of where we'll be focusing in on today. So just could have a quick look at the responses. Sorry, very limited, basic understanding, reasonably regularly. That's great. So that that's great, and that helps obviously. So I'll get going. So just a quick definition of ChatGPT, I guess. I'm sure many people would have seen it on the news. To artificial intelligence language developed on OpenAI, designed to understand and generate human-like text based on the input it receives, engage conversations, answers questions, and basically it collates and harnesses the information that we're putting in. It kind of feeds back based on that, and it learns. That's the big thing about ChatGPT. In terms of its capabilities, I guess, just high level stuff. Capabilities are pretty endless in terms of what you can do with ChatGPT. It's still got a long way to go, but at the moment, generates human-like text across various formats, It powers chatbots. This is for more of the later versions of ChatGPT, which we'll go through a little bit later on today. Offers language translation, which has been hugely beneficial in a lot of work that we've seen. If you think about training or localizing content for specific markets, within 5-10 minutes, you're looking at training documentation that's been localized for the local language, as well as other documentation. I'm just giving a training example here, but massive gains in terms of efficiency there. Provides answers to questions with a high relevance. I think that's very important, high relevance, depending on the type of question you're answering. So I think it's very important. That's what we're going to go through in terms of the prompting. It's asking the right questions, which is always very important. So just one thing to mention, I know I've gone off quite quickly here. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat for us. Izzy and Helen will be keeping an eye on things. If there's anything that we will be covering later on in the session, we'll wait to get there. If there's anything Izzy or Helena thinks we can cover straight away, we'll obviously cover it. So just to mention, sorry about that. In terms of benefits for job seekers, I'm just giving a high-level overview, I guess, in terms of where this could go. We're not going to cover everything today. We don't have enough time, unfortunately. But in terms of tailoring resumes, cover letters, emails, we will be going through that today. But interview practice, we could get a way of it simulating interview questions, helping you to better prepare based on the company you're applying for. It could do the research for you as to which company you're applying for to understand what are the biggest trends or movers within the market, for example, in terms of those companies, to give you a bit of a background so you look a little bit more educated and I guess not having to Google everything, because Google, as I'm sure most people can testify, get a lot of Googling done, a lot of articles you have to read through from different sources, not always necessarily credible. So it does provide a one-stop shop in terms of answers, again, depending on the prompts we ask. Job searching, it can be used for job searching. It can be used for showing you how to job search. So it can recommend areas on that. I'll go through it very quickly a little bit later in terms of just a search I set up on LinkedIn. That's not ChatGPT related, but just to make sure we're covering the bases in the beginning today. Career development, obviously, it can be used to help personalize advice and potential progression for yourself if you can kind of give an idea of where you're looking to go, and it can collect the information and try and show you a kind of a path to get there. It's obviously hugely beneficial for learning. A lot of work that I'm doing now is self-taught through ChatGPT. So acquiring new skills is massively beneficial in terms of opening us up to endless amounts of data and information. I guess the only hindrance there is you're not going to get a ChatGPT certification, for example, but it is there in terms of giving you some background to skills. In terms of GPT, I guess it's really useful just to give you kind of a background in terms of its advantages, and I think also highlighting limitations. Right, it's not all good. There's some stuff we just need to flag to you. Massive advantage for us, as I mentioned, with the language. It really is crafted, enabled, sets up to understand language, and it does have human-like communication and interaction in the way the model has been built. In terms of versatility, there's massive amounts of applications in terms of how you can use this. Just giving out some quick examples. If you're a change communications expert, for example, and you have a particular way of writing, you might have a type of style of writing, for example, you've got your own way of writing messages, and obviously that's bespoke to you, maybe the company, and other examples you can obviously apply that to. You can train ChatGPT on the style of change communications you are working with, so that any subsequent information you try and draft out as version 1s or 2s, it can adapt that type of communication or that style. So it bespoke itself to you, for example. Huge advantage, as I mentioned, the reason why I'm using it is in terms of efficiency and scalability. So getting massive gains in terms of being able to produce information or to try and find information very quickly in terms of research. in latter stages of GPT that I won't be going through today, but we'll give you a bit of background in terms of where it's going and what's out there. There is a huge opportunity to automate a lot of things that can save a lot of time. And then obviously lastly is just data analysis, rapid in terms of processing information, summarizing text, summarizing Excel, but predominantly we've been testing it on information. For example, transcript today from a Teams meeting, we could summarize that into 7 or 8 key takeaways in terms of bullet points within seconds. Again, we'll be going through a lot of this today. In terms of the limitations, it is confined to what it is learning, I guess. So it's information that we've got up until now. So what we'll be going through is the stages of GPT in not much detail, because that's not where the meat is today. But in terms of there are cutoffs with regards to GPT. So as GPT has evolved, it is trained up to the most recent developments at the cutoff. So we'll just take you through a few stages just for interest. And obviously there are stages that become paid versions. I'm not promoting that at all necessarily right now. I think it's just good to learn about and test and trial, as we all have. And if you see the benefits, then maybe it's something you can look into. But there are limitations up to the training updates. It'll be like, for example, up until September 2021, any information that's gone into the web since then won't be available or accessible to ChatGPT, for example. So just knowing that where the cutoffs are very important, obviously, in some of the assumptions we're making. Obviously, the risk of misinformation, it's a big topic these days. It can produce plausible yet incorrect information or misleading information. I think the big thing here is that we are responsible for reviewing our CVs. We are responsible for the content that's being produced and curating that. So we're telling GPT how to get the information, how to use the information, but just using it in an effective way and making sure we double check everything is very important. Prompt quality is massive, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. We will be going to what looks good, what does a good prompt looks like. Sorry. So we'll cover that today, and it's heavily reliant on that quality of the prompt. We'll give some examples there. Data sharing. Exclamation, risk, all the dots and everything. Just as you wouldn't put your information down and leave it lying around in the park, for example, we strongly recommend not processing any personal information here. We can give you some tips in terms of how you can work around that, but I wouldn't be putting my name down, my contact details, or my email, for example, on ChatGPT. Just the way it is using itself and how it's training itself, it is accessible to the wider audience. And just for security reasons, we strongly recommend not to put anything in there. So yeah, just from privacy and confidentiality points of view, yeah, just flagging that today. So that's ChatGPT, some of the boring stuff, but just want to make sure we give you a bit of a basic understanding in the background of it. In terms of today, what we're looking to do is we want to show you, I guess we'll just start from the very beginning, very quickly go through how do you sign up for ChatGPT. Then just give you a brief overview of what is a prompt, what does good look like. And then we're going to take you through these examples of how we can use ChatGPT today. And obviously, if there's time available, we'll obviously cover some more points. But I think big one is CV creation, creating a version 1. I'm sure many people on this call have about 10, 12 versions that they've got. But I guess when I mean version 1 is it's kind of what are we starting off with as that kind of go-to CV that we're going to use to apply for different roles. Then critiquing your CV per role. Bringing up a job description. I've got a couple I found online today, and then obviously customizing your CV based on the job description and of that feedback that's been given. Then writing a cover page. I think cover pages don't get talked about much. They're not used as often. Maybe not so much contracting, but definitely permanent. I know cover pages are very important. I think it's dependent on who you speak to, but just to give you an example of how that could apply. And then obviously email, writing a bespoke email based on the opportunity. So just a few things we'll play around with, and we've got some other examples we can look at. But yeah, I guess getting started, I'm just going to flip over to my desktop just to show you what it all looks like from the outside in. So for those that do end up on ChatGPT, this is where you're going to come into. It's changed a lot over the last year and a half, but getting started, it's just as simple as signing up. It'll ask you for your information. It won't ask you for any credit card details or bank details. It'll start you off with GPT, and you'll start on what we are, well, not what we are using. Well, we use it today, but the free version, which is accessible to everyone, is ChatGPT 3.5. So the way it's gone in terms of its evolution, ChatGPT launched quite some time ago, not a long time ago. I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and it kind of made headlines in 2020 with ChatGPT 3. I think it was about 175 billion parameters it was trained on, a huge set of data. Then ChatGPT 4, which is more recent and more what everyone's using today, that's on 170 trillion parameters. So they've really scaled up, and that's part of the demand that we've seen, and the reason why it's kind of taken off is everyone's using it. So in terms of signing up, just to show you that landing page, signing in, obviously I've got an account. We've got a paid version which gives us access to GPT-4, but today I want to meet everyone where they're at. I guess majority of this audience, hopefully, in terms of those who are on 3.5. If anyone's on 4 or on a paid version, it'll be interesting just to know out of the audience, you know, is anyone on that at this stage? No, all good, all good. Shabi, did you say you have? Sorry.
No, sorry, I said no.
Okay, no worries. No, that's great. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. So that's excellent. So I guess, you know, we just want to make sure we tailor this correctly for everyone's purposes. So I'm just going to go back in terms of screens. So prompting, very important aspect of GPT. So a prompt refers to initial input text or a question that a user provides to the model. It's basically a starting point or an instruction for the AI to generate a response. Just to say, we will be sending this all through to you on the follow-up of this. So we've got a lot of pro prompts and GPT stuff that we've taken a bit of time to curate, and hopefully will expedite things. So please don't feel like you have to write everything down, because there's a lot of text. It's quite a text-heavy presentation, not very colorful. But yeah, I guess the way we describe it is you're talking to a child in a way. So when you talk to a child, you've got to really set the foundations of exactly what you want, and ensure that there's no misinterpretation that can happen with that. So the quality of the specificity of the prompt can significantly affect the relevance and accuracy of the response you get from ChatGPT. It basically sets the context and directs the conversation from the very first time you ask it a question. So what we've got is an example in terms of what do average users do, which I was, and now fortunately with some practice I've moved away from. But if you're sending out a task, and I'm sure most people would have done it the first time they've used ChatGPT, is just ask a general question, like tell me a joke. It's probably the first one I did. But you've got suggest a weekend getaway plan, for example. Now, that's what average people do. But if you think about it from a point of view as if someone's giving you an instruction at work and go and do this for me, you need a lot more clarity than just that. So you would ask the follow-up question would be, you know, what kind of holiday, where are we going, you know, how long, all of those kind of questions. So in terms of your initial input to ChatGPT, what you want to do is give it some context and persona. You want to give it a task. You want to give it examples. You want to give it restrictions and constraints. Give an example in terms of what is considered good, and then steps to achieve the goal. So what we try to do is we've seen this on another one, another GPT seminar before, which we thought quite nicely breaks it into in terms of colors. I think colors work quite well. So you can kind of see within the example we've given, where's the context and persona. So you know, imagine you're a travel planner. It's giving some task then in terms of crafting a comprehensive 3-day weekend itinerary. That's what we want from you. And then in terms of examples, you know, we like hiking, wine tasting, spa sessions, gourmet dining. And then in terms of the restrictions and constraints, you know, where can we go? It's a 4-hour drive from a major city and suits a moderate budget. You can go a step further and say how much your budget is. That's also a possibility. Then what is considered good? You know, we want a well-rounded itinerary, showcase unique experiences, cater to various daily schedules, and then steps to achieve the goal. Include transportation suggestions, accommodation options, possible times, dining proposals. You know, that's really giving a lot of context now to go off and execute what you are wanting from the task. So the more aligned you are to a pro prompt, the better you're going to have, a better chance you're going to have of a follow-up or at least the response from ChatGPT matching what you're looking for. Now, one of the things with the free version with ChatGPT 3.5 is remembering how to do a prompt is quite challenging, and also applying these 6 steps to prompting can sometimes be forgotten. So what we've done, again, we'll share this, is we've created a pro prompt after several iterations. This is what we are using in 3.5. It can be used in models further up, but it's a pro prompt now in kind of giving ChatGPT an understanding of what we're looking for it to do and asking it to give me a better way of telling it how to tell it what to do, if that makes sense. So instead of us having to think about what to write, we're asking it to write our prompt better, to ask it a better question, for example. So at the moment, this works better in GPT 3.4 GPT-4 because it has access to internet. So you can ask it to access the internet and go out and get that information to make it better. So what I'll do here is just give you an example on ChatGPT 3.5 of how a pro prompt can work. Again, the importance of this is just to ensure you've got the foundations of prompting. So just going to share screen quickly. I've just copied it across the prompt. You've got to insert basic command here. But in terms of ChatGPT, I'll ask it, please, can you take the role of a recruiter and review my CV, telling me where I could make improvements. So I've given it some persona there in terms of the recruiter and asking, you know, what to do in terms of the task. It's not a very good prompt. Again, this is more the basic start. But what this prompt does now is it helps ask GPT to tell me how to make it better. So it's come back to me. It's already given me a little bit more than what I gave it already, saying, as a recruiter, I would greatly appreciate your expertise in reviewing my CV, identify areas for improvement. Your insights regarding clarity, specificity, keyword incorporation, conciseness, and neutrality are invaluable to me. Please provide detailed feedback on my CV to enhance its effectiveness and appeal to potential employers. That's now a pro prompt that GPT has given me, so I can ask my question better. So if you are doing something for yourself, for example, that's outside of what I'm going to show you today in terms of CVs, that's an example of how you could take this into your personal lives or into work. You could write your basic prompt here in terms of what you're thinking, and then ChatGPT should be able to come back to you and give you a better way of asking it the question. So what best practice would be then is I would copy that prompt into a new chat and then ask it the question from there, if that makes sense. So how you use it, it trains itself on the chat. So as you're doing work within that chat, it's learning from that prompt and all those questions you're asking. So it's always customizing its search and its answers to you on that thread. If you do ask it something else or something relevant to another topic, we'd always recommend start a new chat, start from the beginning. So basically clearing its mind or clearing its filters, as I like to think of it, from the beginning and starting again. So there you've used it to ask it to show you how to prompt. Now I'd use that prompt in a brand new search now, for example. So that is just in terms of prompting. So I guess just showing you how to prompt is a very important part in walking away with something. The other one we'll share with you, sorry, we've got some best practice and resources You know, we're big on open source, so we'll just provide those with you. Some of the stuff we've encountered along the way. Creating the version 1, again, I don't want to take too much time in repeating that example, because obviously, hopefully that way of prompting GPT to give you a better prompt will help. What we've got is basically the pro versions of how you would prompt. So what we want to try and show you now is how you can use the pro version of prompting to really get into giving you some feedback on your CV, for example. So what I will do is I'm going to open up. I say my CV, you'll definitely know from my intro that this is not my CV, but a CV I've cobbled together just to give some overview, I guess, of change management. So it's definitely, yeah, not anyone's in particular, it's just something I've put together. So in terms of ChatGPT, again, just what I said earlier, please start off with a new search. So start off with a new question. So this one, in terms of our prompt that we've called a pro prompt, is again, persona. Assume the role of an experienced recruiter with an up-to-date knowledge of the current job market. With 3.5, the cutoff would be 2021, but that's okay. That's close enough for me. I'm seeking to update my CV using your expertise and effectively showcasing my background and skills. Provide detailed guidance on how to highlight my professional experience, educational background, and unique skills in a manner that will most appeal to the potential employers. Focus on industry-specific tips. If applicable, suggest ways to format and organize my CV for maximum impact. Now, the benefit I've got in terms of having seen this is I do get a lot of questions and having to rely on people's input in how I can write my CV or what's the best way. So this is just another way, right, in terms of collating information. So the way GPT works in the 3.5 version, that sounds like everyone's got access to, is you can't upload a file. In GPT-4, you can. So this step is a little bit different. But for us on 3.5, if you just copy your CV from Word and then take it across to ChatGPT, when you start off with your CV, what is best practice is to put open quotation marks or stars. It just helps delineate where your CV starts and where your CV ends, so that GPT knows exactly where it's looking to review the CV. So now I've asked it to review my CV, give me some tips in terms of where I can make improvements. Then we can watch it work. So yeah, it's going to start giving me an overview of tailored suggestions, and it's saying structure your professional experience section chronologically, which I have, thankfully. Use bullet points, quantify your achievements where possible, education, certifications, formatting and organization, and other tips within that. So in effect, it's telling you what you can do to improve that. Now, that's great, but you know, you can take it one step further. You could say, with this in mind, please could you provide me with, please provide me with a new version taking into account and our recommendation would be to try and simulate the wording that it uses. So it's using the words guidelines and copying it as much as possible so it can understand you. With this in mind, please can you provide me with a new version of my CV and I'll just update that, sorry, with an updated version of my CV, taking into account the guidelines shared. So now it's going to go off and do a first version draft. And again, it's about providing you with quick access to improvements in your CV. So you're not sitting there having to think when you're working on it for the 10th time. It's another pair of eyes now on your CV. So it's rewritten my summary already quite quickly, where my CV had quite a long profile overview, extremely motivated, hardworking, ambitious, responsible, reliable, well-rounded, whereas that's more a little bit more punchy. So in terms of its response to me, it's giving a bit more information. It's giving some industry background. It's giving some of my certification that I mentioned at the very bottom of my CV. It's bringing it all the way to the top. And then it's starting to reconfigure some of my CV to start giving me a bit of a different layout, condensing it, making it a little bit more sharper based on what it thinks is useful in this example. So I guess in this example, we're trying to show how you can get to version 1. So you could have a version of your CV that's got a lot of information in there, and you want to create a version that you can work from the beginning. So one way of doing it is asking it for what's best practice with your CV with regards to CV formatting, and then ask it to give you a version 1 to work with. Again, responsibility does sit with us in terms of, you know, adding, it won't make up things for you. So you'll know what you did on a project. If you didn't have a responsibility, it won't just put in a responsibility or something that you did. It doesn't have that capability. I'll show you how I can do something similar, but that's not really where it sits in terms of its skills. It's really trying to take your CV and shape it, either using better English sometimes or spelling checks, or taking that and customizing it to the feedback it's given. So that's one example in CV1. But then the area that I think in terms of today will be, I guess, more beneficial. I'm going to keep saying that probably throughout the day, but everyone will have their different points of view in terms of how this could work for them. But what I'm going to do now is show you another one. So this is a different prompt altogether. Again, we'll share it after this. This one is more along the lines of, I've got a job description and I've now got my version 1 of my CV. So we've worked on our CV. I'm pretty happy with the one I've got already. I'm not going to update it based on the feedback we had just now. But now we're asking it is, in essence, sorry, I don't want to read it all through to you, but it'll be in the pack. It's basically, I'm asking it to assume the role of a recruiter. I'm asking it now to review my CV, and then based on my CV, I'm also going to add a job description. So compare my CV versus the job description, and then let me know what the thoughts are. So I'm just going to, sorry, it takes a little bit of time. So following is my CV. I'm going to use open quotation marks in that regard, and then copy my CV across, remembering to close them, and then asking the following is the job description. Now, because we used open quotation marks, I would suggest going with stars, for example. So 3 stars will work in this occasion. Then in terms of a job I found earlier today, one was at Tesco. In terms of the job ad, you know, we don't really want it to, you know, review in terms of what is the remuneration or, you know, sometimes about the company values, etc. You might want to use them for interview prep. For me, what's really interesting here is about the role. So what am I going to be responsible for, and what will I need in terms of my experience? So literally just copy and paste that through to GPT. Again, remembering just to close the loop with 3 stars. Izzy, feel free to jump in here because Izzy's really good at this. If he's got another bit of advice, please do.
No, I just thought you might have missed the word CV off the following is my. I think it's done the job anyway.
No, you're right. I think, you know, let's do best practice. Yeah, well spotted. Thank you. So you can go back and you can edit. It's always a good thing to know. So I can go back and then go, this is my CV. What it will do is it'll just create a new type of answer. So at the bottom, I'll show you what it looks like. Save and submit. It'll just say 2 of 2. So it's going to start generating. So now it's going to walk me through where I'm
There
doing
is a
well.
quick question, sorry, while we're
Sorry.
waiting. Does it make a difference putting the job description first or the CV after, or it doesn't matter?
Good question. No, it shouldn't really matter as long as we depict exactly what we are putting in. It shouldn't have an effect on it. One caveat though, because it is a good question, because you with GPT, because it's always learning and it's always adapting to information that's being put into ChatGPT. What we've experienced is you'll never get the same answer word for word twice. So in your question, we wouldn't really 100% know, but we can definitely trial it, and I don't think there'll be a problem in terms of how you put that in, job description first or CV. It's absolutely not a problem.
Just to add to that, it's highly dependent on the length of the prompt that you're putting in. Kind of research has found that these models do take into account the start and the end of your prompt more than the middle, but if it's relatively small, it works fine. It will work fine either way. It's just if you're dealing with really big amounts of writing.
Thanks, Liz. So again, what it's done here is it's told me, where am I doing well? What I should highlight in terms of my background, showcasing my experience in change and engagement strategies. It's a bit difficult in this type of environment because obviously everyone knows their CVs like the back of their hands. In the CV that I've generated, there were a couple of finance mentions, one with regards to SAP, and then finance was a module within SAP that we were working on. Not a module, but an area within SAP we were working on. So this feedback will be really helpful for you, for yourself, I guess, when you know your CV inside out. But this is great. So, okay, you've given me recommendations to enhance my CV. So, this is where we could be doing better. That's great. But, that's the first step. Why don't you just do it for me, ChatGPT? So I guess whenever you're thinking, oh, it's going to need some more work on my end, just ask it to do the work and see what it can give you. Please could you provide so I'm going to use the same language. You can create a CV. Please can you create CV that takes into consideration the recommendations mentioned. So now what it's going to do is going to go off and then it's going to take into consideration its own feedback, and it's going to rewrite my CV based on the information it thinks is relevant or pertinent to the job. What it's done also in this one, I can see very quickly, again, you'll know better because your CV, you'll know like the back of your hand. What it's done here is taken the information of the roles in which I've got finance. So it's taken the approach, I'm only going to give you what's relevant to the job description here. I'm going to leave out the rest, for example. So it's just really cutting down the CV. You can prompt it to include the remainder of your CV. So you can, so if you want to give it a go too, here's a revised version of your CV incorporating. So I could say in the revision, please include my complete CV.
I find that there's some key words that you can include in prompts, and one that I use a lot is the word entire, which seems to have a big effect on how much of the job it does for you.
It's a good tip. I think that's the good thing with GPT is Izzy and I have different approaches, and we we often get to the same result, but just in a different way. So we've had a good time this week just preparing for this session. But in terms of attire, I completely agree. And then also just in terms of that prompt, it has given me the remainder of the CV now. So that's really useful. And giving you a first draft. Again, just going back to what we mentioned earlier, it's going to try and do a lion's share of the work, and then you can kind of prompt it from there to try and ask it to do more. But what I want to do is also just give you an example of just going back. So I've asked it to redo my CV. It's given me a new version of my CV. You might like that, you might not. But just to show you some other examples of how you can use ChatGPT with this. So I've asked it, to provide me a CV. What I want to do here, and again, just to try and expedite because we're running out of time, is I've got a question now. So based on these recommendations and having reviewed my CV versus the job description, tell me what I've demonstrated well in terms of my experience, and where am I lacking in terms of my CV. I think it's a big question a lot of people ask. People that are applying for roles, or asking themselves, if I'm applying for this role, what is my CV lacking? Again, you might have a 10-page version of your CV, very hard to go back and really pull out and pick apart. So I'm asking it, where am I lacking experience within my CV? So it's saying change management experience is really good, leadership and stakeholder engagement good, financing technology background good, communication is good. However, where I'm lacking in terms of the job description, or where I could actually add a little bit more information, is my center of excellence mobilization experience in setting up environments, innovative communication approaches, for example. So, excuse me. So what it's done really in literally 10 seconds, it's just calling out some big things that I could potentially be doing better in terms of demonstrating my CV. Again, it's feedback, it's another pair of eyes. In my opinion, a little bit more trustworthy than some people I've spoken to in terms of feedback, from my CV in the past, because it's taking a neutral point of view, and it's just working in terms of what it's seeing from a data point of view. So what you could do, you could go back and say, I've taken that information on board. I'm going to go and rewrite my CV and take these things into consideration. Or again, sometimes you want to say to ChatGPT, let's rewrite that CV. And again, this is a little bit more out there because, as I said, it can only work with the information you've given it. So it doesn't know everything you did on site. In my example, with an agricultural company or farmer, some of that stuff you will know, and you can shape that as you want to. But just to give you an example again, rewrite my, again, Izzy, good point. We'll add an entire. Rewrite my entire CV to incorporate these additional details. And what I wanted to do is I want to tell me where it's actually assumptions. Tell me where you are making up the information, and what I can do is I can go back and correct that, or I can delete it, for example. So let's give another profile overview. It's given my professional experience, and what it's doing now is it is showing you incorporate details about center of excellence mobilization here. In other areas, then incorporate details about experience in setup environment. So it's going to make assumptions, again, based on what it thinks you need. If it doesn't play ball with you, you can just tell GPT where it's gone wrong, for example. So just in this example we're giving you now, it's always good live, is it's just trimmed down to 2017. I asked it for my entire CV. So you just can go back and say, I asked for my entire CV, please include more relevant information. I'm used to saying please. Again, ChatGPT might not need please, but that's a debate for another day. And it should go back and redo that, considering I've asked it to do that. So again, it's here to learn. It's learning from you. And again, each time you pull up these threads, it's going to learn from what you're asking it to do. So again, it's gone back to 2017. So again, I would have to keep prompting it just to go back. It's not foolproof. It does have errors with regards to it, like any tech product does. But hopefully you can start seeing the efficiencies in terms of output for it. So What I will do though is I'll go back a few threads because I want to use the same thread because I want to save us some time.
Matthew, we have a
yes.
good question here.
Sorry, I can't see any questions. Go for it.
So sorry, Shabir is asking, is there a benefit from doing this as a two-step process to ask for recommendations first and then incorporate them rather than going straight to creating an updated CV?
It's a very good question. Personally, I would go with the point about where am I lacking, and then I would go about myself inputting that information, because it'll basically tell you what's not in the CV. What I'm asking it to do there is to try and make assumptions, and it can never really give you an accurate point. I guess the purpose of the demonstration is just to show you where it could go in terms of prompting if you wanted it to. So I would definitely err on the go back, give it a first crack in terms of your input of information, your based on the feedback, and then put the CV back in and say, please tell me where I'm doing well with the CV based on the job description and where I'm doing poorly, and then see how the feedback comes back. And then hopefully with that work you've done, it will help. So I would err on that side in terms of the question 100%.
Yeah.
Hopefully that covers it.
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Sorry, again, I can't see anyone, so I'm relying on Izzy and Helena. So I guess, those are CV points, and I'm conscious of the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through one more example about the cover page, and the bespoke email is very similar in terms of its approach. Again, we've got a prompt for you can use. I want to pass on, we've got a few more things to wrap up. So let's just say it's written the CV, and the CV is how we want it. So now I'm going to ask it to take the role of a job applicant. So I'm the job applicant, write a cover page based on the CV I provided, which is in there, tailoring it to match the background and the job description. In essence, basically, I'm asking it, write a cover page very quickly based on the CV and job description I've given you. Bang. Seconds. In terms of you thinking about your first draft, it's already given you a first draft very quickly, based on your CV, based on the job description. So what you can do, what I do like is I do like to, I guess, play around with how it works. So one thing I would do is, I'll give you an example, just because I've pre-written it, just in case we ran out of time. As you can see, I'm writing to express my interest in the job title at whichever company is advertised, 15 years of experience, very formal. So I'm asking it now to take a more relaxed and humorous approach in the letter and rewrite this. So it's going to be a bit wacky, I'm sure, but let's just see what it has to say. Again, this is really ChatGPT humor. Letter finds you well and not buried in a mountain of resumes taller than Mount Everest. I'm writing to throw in my hat into the ring. Your quest for a change manager who can lead with a blend of charisma, wit, and a dash of magic. Well, maybe not magic, but close enough. Perfectly with my own quest for a new adventure. And it can give you kind of first drafts to that. So that's an example. Another one is, it might be a bit lengthy for you in terms of your purposes. Please, could you reduce the length of this cover page to, let's say, 4 sentences. Much easier, much quicker. It's giving you a first draft again, and based on your feedback and your prompting, it's going to make adjustments to where you are. So hopefully that gives you an idea of kind of what's available, what can be done, and how quickly you can move with it. And once you get familiar with your CV and you've got your first version, and you've got familiarity in terms of your jobs you're applying for, you could literally just be throwing the CV in there and then kind of giving it a prompt to come back to you on that. So the last one I won't cover is just around the email bespoke to the opportunity, but very similar prompt asking it to review that. I haven't followed 100% best practice, so I want to try and get through quite a bit there. But again, I would restart the thread. Here's my CV. Here's the prompt again with regards to the prompt for the new email template or the new cover page, for example. every time just going back to restart from there. So what I'll do is I've got a few more things to cover. Sorry.
Just a quick question, Matthew, just kind of, I guess this is a lead question to, can GPT work only with text and templates, or can we bring a sort of a format, a branded branding, colors, etc.? What can GPT do there? It's a question from Mirete.
That's a great question. Izzy, I'll definitely let you answer that one.
Something that I've actually been really trying to get GPT to do for us internally at Esoria, and it's actually it's very, very bad with formatting, branding, colors on its own. It's very good at putting text and words into the right order or structure, but not you know, highlighting, underlining, and arranging on a page. There are a lot of other tools that are trying to bridge that gap, which we could let you know about after if it's something you're interested in. But yeah, GPT is still grappling with that.
Thanks, Iz. It's a great point to introduce the remaining part of the presentation.
Yeah, so this is me. So yeah, I guess just to look a little bit into the future, I think what I'm working on is more what's coming with AI, and I think the free version, what you've seen today, what Matthew's presented, just kind of reiterate, it's very good with mainly tasks that involve writing or research. I think the biggest use case for me has been to teach myself new things whenever I need it immediately. I think the paid version of GPT-4 opens up a lot more functionality. You can add documents, you can browse the internet, so you have much more live data to work with, especially if you're researching anything. There's also kind of ChatGPT's version of the App Store, which they call custom GPTs, which bridge a lot of the gaps, like we were just talking about. Kind of there's a few for branding and design and almost anything you can think of, and there's also the added benefit of better security, data security. You can choose to have it not train on your data, so you don't have to be as worried with your personal information being out there. And then just to touch on a few other bits, a few trends that definitely have arrived, and one is co-pilots, and the biggest example of that is with Microsoft, who are now integrating AI into their kind of suite of products. For instance, we have a co-pilot running on this meeting as we speak, which hopefully afterwards will provide everyone with a summary. It's a bit temperamental in its current form, so we don't know. And then lastly, there's the newest thing is kind of agents, which are more about automation, which I think everyone will start to hear about over the next year. But I think the main thing I wanted to just stress was that over all of those different uses for AI, the one kind of common denominator is prompt engineering, and the way that you talk to them is definitely a skill that I can see being a really key skill for almost everyone. Quick questions come in. The cost of upgrading from GPT 3.5 to GPT 4 is $20 per month, but at Esoria we have an enterprise license, which they call a team license, and it's $30 per month per user. which completely takes away any risk of data breach or adding your personal data in there, and has a few other benefits of being a bit faster and stuff like that, which happy to talk to if you need any further information. But yeah, so I think just personally, I use it every single day for every task I possibly can, and I really think it's worth everyone getting used to using it and learning about prompts, how to write prompts.
Thanks, Iz. Yeah, we're definitely not ChatGPT salesmen, but yeah, I think one of the big things for us is just trialing it on 3.5, and then we took the step forward to try and use it more. And $20 we thought was a good investment for us personally when we were doing it. Now we've obviously moved to enterprise, which is more company wide, so the benefits are there. But I guess just in summary, just GPT, I guess a quick intro, as we've all talked about, it's here to stay 100%. Prompting is key. If you can master that, I mean, it's a huge unlocker for a lot of what we face as challenges in terms of GPT. The advantages and limitations, I guess I don't want to over egg them too much, but I think the limitations is 100% the data in terms of sharing of private information, but huge advantages too in terms of efficiency, and then also versatility, and in terms of language too is a huge aspect of it. We encourage everyone to explore. Just if in doubt, ask ChatGPT. How to use it better is a big thing for us. I know a lot of people said on the beginning of the session no one's on 4, but a big thing what we are developing, as Izzy mentioned, is you've obviously got the version of App Store. So what we've got is we're building our own version of open source. You can call them bots if you want to. That's the language that they're using within GPT now. ChatGPT has moved to what they call GPT. So we've got bots that we're developing and we're trying to iterate at the moment. So we've got 2 available. We've got CV tailoring. I think you might have seen on my screen, but just to give you an idea, tailored by Soria. We've got Prompt Master Pro. These are things we just developed internally. Actually, Izzy's done most of the developing. He's really good at it. But if you do on the paid version, these are things that are free. What we can do is if you get to that stage, or are interested in it, then we can just send you a link, and all you need is the link, open up on your browser, and you've got access to it. So a big part of it is obviously is using it open source. It's there for everyone to use. So if it can help anyone, just let us know. We'll happily drop you the details. Appreciate we're bang on time now. And we've got just a couple of questions, but I guess any comments or any takeaways from today, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. I know we're having troubles with the poly, but yeah, hopefully everyone got some use out of today. And if you've got any questions for us, I'm happy to stay on for a little bit longer. And obviously, otherwise, reach out to someone from Soria, and we will be happy to help where we can.
Fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate all the insights and top tips. Really useful session.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great week. Good luck with ChatGPT.
Same to you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.